Welcome to The Record Show, your virtual spin around the vinyl industry. Brought to you by Radio Wasteland Records. Yes, Midland has a record store. Here's your host, Jim Gleason.
Greetings from the Wasteland and welcome to another edition of The Record Show. And we've got a fun one planned for you again today. After a short RSD-related hiatus, Ken Norton will join us once again for a look ahead at Indie Record Store and other releases headed your way. We'll also take a litigious spin in the Wasteland courtesy of Jimmy Page, who may or may not have copied something straight up. But first, the album Battle at Garden's Gate was released last week by Greta Van Fleet. This is their sophomore effort, and we thought we would do a quick review and talk a little bit about the debacle that was the Indie Record Store Day release. So the Battle at Garden's Gate is Greta Van Fleet's second album, a follow-up to 2018's Anthem of the Peaceful Army. And the big question is, can they maintain the momentum built from both their singles and the EPs through Anthem and into Garden's Gate? Well, in my opinion, yes, they are maintaining that momentum very, very well. They are firmly placing themselves in that 70s rock sound without shame, without any remorse whatsoever through the Battle at Garden's Gate. Lots and lots of criticisms throughout their early career for Greta was that they sounded too much like Led Zeppelin. They're borrowing from Led Zeppelin. They're copying Led Zeppelin, right down to the vocals and the music stylings. Well, that may or may not be true, and you can judge for yourself. And that may or may not be a good or bad thing. You'll have to judge that for yourself as well. Greta Van Fleet fans love it. People that don't like it, don't like it. And I think that that's where you're going to end up with this record as well. If you already are a fan of Greta, you'll love this sophomore effort that they've put forth with this double LP. Not going to do so well for folks that already have a preconceived notion that these guys are riding the coattails of the 70s rock stars that came before them and influenced them. For my take, though, is this a good album? Yes. Is it a great album? I'll have to kind of give it a few more tries to make that judgment as we come out, though. Prior to this release, though, on April 16th, Greta had released the song My Way Soon as kind of their lead single heading into that. And it's a good rock and roll tune, pretty much just straight up, good old time rock and roll from the 70s sound. But as you get past that 70s rock and roll feel, you also start to feel some creeping prog rock sounds throughout this record. And it's not just the music, but the actual physical presentation itself. And I have to admit, when you take a closer look at the album's outer sleeve, the insert, and the inside the gatefold, you're really beginning to get that prog rock feel, channeling the likes of Rush and Yes. Now, the cover itself is very nice. It's embossed all the way around on front and back with the gold leaden imagery and text. But when you open it up, the embossing continues on the inside. It's really tough to tell, obviously, on video, but the artwork is raised up with embossing. It's really kind of a cool thing. And as I mentioned, you're channeling Yes at this point, or Rush, or some of those other great prog rock bands from the 60s, 70s, and maybe even somewhat into the early 80s. And the sound does reinforce the imagery on this. You get that prog rock feel with a lot of great songs like Heat Above. Broken Bells is another one that I think really comes to mind on this. Built by Nations and Age of Machines really kind of take this a step further into that genre as well. Now, production-wise, this feels much more polished than a lot of Greta Van Fleet's earlier work, including the aforementioned Anthem of the Peaceful Army. This shows that they took their time. It would seem the break in their constant touring in 2020 because of COVID gave them the opportunity to really put a polish on this. The songs feel very orchestral at times, very deep and very moving. Strings are prevalent throughout, keyboards as well, but that does not detract, as I said, from the bass rock and roll feel of this album. Now, they've also included a 16-page insert with many variations of this album, which carries that prog rock theme forward as well. It's got liner notes and lyrics throughout, as well as a your gratuitous boy band pick at the tail end of all of this. So it's a cool package all around. And as I said before, musically speaking, I think this is a good rock and roll album. It's something you can put on in the background as long as you don't start thinking too hard about the lyrics. It's great rock and roll music. Now, as far as the collectability of the Battle at Garden's Gate vinyl goes, in the long term, I don't think we're looking at anything that's going to be extremely valuable. In the short term, you may have heard us talking a little bit about the debacle surrounding the white vinyl indie record store exclusive release of this. That version seems to be fetching a little bit more right now on Discogs than any of the other multiple versions that are out there. If you're unfamiliar with what we're talking about, the white vinyl indie record store exclusive version of this was throttled, i.e. rationed by Universal Music just prior to release. And that paved the way for much more in-demand versions of the release, exclusives from Target, Walmart, and from the band's website. The Walmart version is on transparent-ish vinyl and the Target on green. And the band had released their own exclusive version via the website on what they called a tie-dye. It's kind of a greenish one. But that version came with no outer sleeve whatsoever. Now, the white vinyl version, again, was supposed to go to independent record stores, but was strictly rationed by UMG. A few copies did get out there, but very, very few of them. We here at our store were told to expect that version in about 4 weeks or so. Whether or not there'll still be a demand for it at that time because of the number of other ones that went out there is anyone's guess. There are also, by the way, plenty of black vinyl versions of this floating around out there on double LP. So you shouldn't have trouble finding a copy. It's just that white vinyl version remains elusive for the time being. Now, if I may, a quick bit of editorialism regarding that. The whole notion of independent store exclusive vinyl is that it gives smaller stores like this a chance against the big corporations. And it really does seem to cheapen the overall value of an indie exclusive when you release a Walmart exclusive, when you release a Target exclusive, and to some extent the band. Now, they have every right to do that. It is a business, after all, to get that vinyl out to as many of the fans as possible. But just prior to release on their Facebook page, Greta Van Fleet shared a video of the white vinyl pressing process, along with a post calling independent record stores the lifeblood of the vinyl community. And that's all well and good to think like that, but if you're really going to walk the walk, and we are really the lifeblood of that industry, then why are you licensing out things to Target and Walmart at the same time? Again, no problem with that. It's their business and they can do it as they like. It's just that I feel they're paying lip service to the indie stores by posting that and by Universal ultimately delaying the release to indie stores in favor of the big corporations. We'll deal with it as we always do. In the meantime, though, that should not discourage you from enjoying a great album from a cool band. So get out and enjoy Battle at Garden's Gate from Greta Van Fleet. But now on the record show, we'd like to welcome back after a short little break to deal with Record Store Day and all of the madness that ensues. Ken Norton from Ingram Entertainment. Ken, welcome back. It's been a busy couple weeks, hasn't it?
Sure has, Jim. Great to be back, though. Thank you.
You guys get really busy this time of year. Well, this time of year being any record store day thereabouts, but this one seems a little busier, doesn't it?
Busier, probably so. There's 2 record store day drop dates, but we, as the supplier, took all the orders for both drop dates as of last week. The one is in the middle of June and one in the middle of July, and we expect it to be possibly the biggest record store day ever as the 2 are combined.
Wow. And you guys, I'm assuming, took a lot of orders in.
We sure did. I've never seen orders quite so voluminous.
Is there any title that stands out to you as where the demand is going from either of the drops?
Oh, my goodness. Demand's really high on several titles. I would say there's a lot of interest in the Amy Winehouse record. People just starve for Amy Winehouse material, and there's just so little out there in her short career. There's an Allman Brothers record that people seem very interested in. 2 Black Sabbath reissues with some special features, special packaging. People are very into those. Man, the list just goes on. There's over 400 titles.
It's amazing. I think with that demand too, we're probably going to have to really watch it as indie record stores as far as what we're getting. I would imagine things are going to be rationed on the very, very short press items as well.
there will definitely be rations. It happens every year. This one's not going to be any different. And some items everybody will get everything they want, but there'll be plenty of ones that'll be in short supply to a degree or another.
That's what makes Record Store Day special. It's the hunt.
Well, that is the message in a way for the music fan is like, look, you got to get it on the day of, you got to get it right away. If you really want it, don't wait.
Yep. Put the legwork in. Well, on to more immediate things. So we do have some other new releases. There's some cool stuff coming up this week. Could you fill us in, please?
Sure. So the B-52's second album, Wild Planet, on reissue. People have been looking for that for a moment. That's come back and it'll come out this week. I want to mention that the Greta Van Fleet, which the record came out last week, there's a special indie record store only autographed CD version of that. And those have finally come in a little bit after the street date, but people will want those who are, huge fans, autographed. So look for the Wasteland to have some of those.
We're getting a few, hopefully.
You are?
Yep.
Let me say the number. 10.
Yeah, that's okay. We're getting some. 10. We're getting some. Yep.
Okay. There's a John Lennon Plastic Ono band, the ultimate mixes and outtakes. That's coming out this week. That's half speed mastered, 180-gram vinyl, gatefold sleeve, replica and explanatory inner sleeve notes, 8-page illustrated booklet, and a War's Over poster. And
kind of a cool package.
UK mixes, things that weren't otherwise available. Something definitely interesting to the Lennon fans. Also, a double vinyl reissue of the Who Sell Out. Let's see, and it has it's a 4-disc set, and it has 2 entire discs of mixes and single mixes and remixes and early rough mixes and the like, and even like a promo spot and a Great Shakes ad, which I thought was pretty cool, all in that package. That's coming out this week. And also, we wanted to talk about a interesting record for next week, which is the Mick Fleetwood's tribute to Peter Green. Pretty star-studded live lineup. It was a live recording, and this one has Pete Townsend, Noel Gallagher, Steven Tyler, Zach Starsky, Christine McVie, John Mayall, David Gilmour, Billy Gibbons, more. So that's a live recording. There's a semi-expensive LP set that let's see, those are running.
I think it's running around $70.
Okay,
if I remember right.
So there's a super deluxe version at like a $156.98 list, and that has 4 albums, a CD, and a Blu-ray from the entire concert. That is a limited edition, and it's the amount of material in that is just astounding. Just tons of things. So for the super fan, you might want to watch out for that, or even pre-order it.
It would be a good idea, I think, speaking as an indie store, to pre-order something like that, especially the bigger box set. If you're a big Brit blues fan or early Fleetwood Mac fan, probably best off to let your store know that you'd like something like that ahead of time.
Yeah, I would think so.
Cool. Now, further ahead, I was looking at the list, and I think next week we've got something from Carrie Underwood, and the week after, rather, and Pink Floyd live at Nebworth. But further down the line on May 14th, I got a note from you, something about the Black Keys, and this looks pretty exciting also.
Yeah, they've just announced this. There's a new Black Keys record coming. It's called Delta Cream with a K. Picture of a cool sort of Dairy Queen kind of rural Dairy Queen kind of place that was named Delta Cream. I wonder if that's where they got the title. Probably is. It's supposed to be a very bluesy record, and all new. And there's going to be a regular LP, CD, and then an indie exclusive with the smoke-colored vinyl.
Okay. And that looks like it's coming May 14.
Yes.
Cool. All right, Ken. Well, thanks. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and hopefully we'd like to say things are going to kind of slow up a little bit, but the orders are in. Now the work begins with the Record Store Day stuff.
Yeah, you bet. But it's good. It's a good thing to have. We love it. It's a lot of work, certainly, but it makes a lot of people happy, and it's a terrific thing.
We'll talk much more as we get closer to that first drop date. And hopefully all of the indie stores will do well with what they're asking for this time around.
We really hope so. That's our goal.
All right, Ken. Have a great week, and we will talk to you next time.
Okay, super. Thanks.
You. And finally today in our Spin from the Wasteland, we'll borrow a little music from Jimmy Page. Earlier we talked about how Greta Van Fleet takes a lot of heat for sounding like Led Zeppelin. Their new one, again, sounding a little bit like any number of 70s prog or harder rock bands. But Zeppelin, in their own turn, took heat for sounding like any number of older blues artists, especially on their earlier albums. But with one song in particular, Jimmy Page didn't just sound like something else, he actually took someone else's music. On their 1969 debut album, Jimmy Page included a song called Dazed and Confused. And if you look very carefully at both the album label and the back cover, Page credits himself as the writer of that tune. In reality, that goes back a little bit further. Page brought that tune, Dazed and Confused, with him from the Yardbirds. He wrapped up his time with the Yardbirds in 1968, and this was one of the unpublished tunes that he'd carried forward. Unpublished meaning that the Yardbirds never officially recorded it or put it on a record, although they did play Dazed and Confused live several times, including this cut from the BBC.
Les Yardbirds, pour la première fois j'attrape une baguette au vol. Dazed and Confused, un morceau des Yardbirds par les Yardbirds. Yeah. Yeah. I'm dazed and confused, I'm hanging on by a thread. I'm being abused, I'd be better off dead. Can't stand I'm starting to crack. You're out to get me, you're on the right track.
The story of Dazed and Confused goes back a little bit further into 1967. Page and the Yardbirds at the time were touring and played a gig in Greenwich Village in New York. The opening act was an American folk singer by the name of Jake Holmes. In that set, before he opened, he played a song of his called Dazed and Confused.
I'm dazed and confused. As it stay, as it go. Am I being choosed? Well, I'd just like to know. Give me a clue as to where I am at. I feel like a mouse and you act like a cat.
Now, according to some reports from that time, Page was so enthralled with that tune and its chord progression that they went out the next day and bought a copy of Jake Holmes' album, The Above Ground Sound of Jake Holmes. And over time, Page began to interpret the Dazed and Confused into one of his own, adding his own guitar riffs. The Yardbirds reworked the lyrics a little bit, and by the time it became a Led Zeppelin tune, Robert Plant had his hand in the lyrics as well, and Page continued to refine the guitar licks. But at its heart, the song remains something that was created by Jake Holmes. Now, it took nearly 40 years before Jake Holmes decided to sue Jimmy Page for plagiarism over Dazed and Confused. And at that time, the statute of limitations had long since expired, and really he could only sue to claim royalties and damages for 3 years previous, according to law. That lawsuit, by the way, was settled a short time later, with its details not disclosed, but all future incarnations and repressings of Dazed and Confused featured Holmes as a co-writer of that song. For his part, Jake Holmes is still out there making music, although he does not talk about Dazed and Confused and Led Zeppelin anymore, and that's probably due to the settlement reached with them. And as far as Led Zeppelin goes, well, things seem to work out okay for them. Although we didn't talk about the Stairway to Heaven lawsuit, did we?
Yeah, I'm dazed and confused, and it's all upside down. My big shoes, do you want me around? Secrets are fun to a certain degree, but this one's no fun 'cause the secret's on me.
Thanks for watching The Record Show. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. And be sure to hit that notifications bell so you'll be alerted every time we upload new content.